What's up, guys? Cheers.
Cheers at the beach.
Cheerio.
That is not a green screen, even though it does look like one. That is our real background right now.
It's the actual ocean. It's crazy enough. That actually exists
That's
on our
Lake
planet.
Pontchartrain.
We are what you called an ocean planet, not a land planet.
Are you sure?
What is consciousness?
Anyways, we're going to dive right into the topics today.
We're just going to dive in. But no, we'll give a little bit of a warm up. We've been in Florida for a couple days now. We know we kind of promised you guys an episode a little bit earlier, but
one day earlier. We were 1 day late.
Yes.
It was because
extenuating circumstances kind of took it out of our. Yeah. Keegan decided to do something. I don't know. What'd you do?
Something that stopped it. But no, there was essentially long story short, we we're going to record the other night, and then all of a sudden it was raining. It was nasty. We would have had to do it inside. Kind of one of the points of being at the beach is for that background right there.
Which is not a green screen.
Again, it's not a green screen.
It's not.
And at the end of the day, we want to bring you guys the best quality product. So we waited till the surroundings fit what we wanted for the product. We're doing it for you. Don't complain.
We are taking time out of our vacation to do this for you guys. There's a jet flying in the background.
They probably can't hear that.
Well, we can. And you have to believe us, just like this is not a green screen.
It's not a green screen.
It's not.
But it's been another interesting thing is this is the first time that we've ever done the podcast in the same vicinity. Even though we live in the same city and state and we see each other all the time, we don't have a dedicated place right now to do the podcasts like together.
The potty.
Yep. So we always do it from our individual abodes and just bring you guys the product that way. But today we're in Florida. We're at the beach. We're drinking some water.
That's orange and tainted.
And we're having a good time. We're excited to talk to you guys today. We got some good topics that at least we think are interesting. We've been shooting around while we've been here. Florida's always a good place to just get real deep and just start talking about all the stuff that makes you stay up at night. Like, what is consciousness? What is it? What is the definition? What is the meaning of life? Are we ever going to get to Mars? All the stuff you guys know that we're going to talk about, you're going to be interested in.
And that was legitimately our breakfast conversation this morning. That's just like a standard type of conversation that we have anytime we're together or on the phone or talking to you guys. We tend to go from like very surface level stuff to about 100 levels deep in a matter of 5 seconds. So that's what makes it exciting. Here on Thoughtify, you're going to get a bit of everything in a matter of 30 seconds or less. Real quick.
This is episode number 28.
28. We're almost at 30.
Almost at 30.
Just like our age, but we're not 30.
We got our Thoughtify merch. Again, like we said in our posts the other day, it will be out soon. But be ready to spend your money on that because that is going to make you a lot cooler than the other people in your friend groups when you wear that. And they go, "Where'd you get that?" And you go,
"Wouldn't you like to know?" And not tell them.
Well, please tell them. That would actually help.
Tell them, but be mysterious about it. Make them want it a little bit. Sell it because you're not part of some generic cool podcast group. You're part of the Thoughtify army. We are a squad. We are a thought process. We are a mentality of questioning everything that we've maybe been told our whole lives. And This is a good segue again into what we were talking about this morning. But it's all part of it. Be different. Be yourself because everyone else is taken, but also take advantage of that and be different.
If you just felt as if you now don't know what to do, that's where we wanted you. So perfect time to
I will say before we dive into the whole state of consciousness, when you said certain levels of deep thought, deep questioning, etc., I was watching this video the other day. So I'm a watch geek. We've talked about it before. And Omega is a brand I really, really like. And just like multiple other watch companies, they all have their dive watches and whatnot. But there was one that they developed, just like Rolex did, called the Ultra Deep. It is meant to withhold and withstand pressure of up to 20,000 feet deep. So there's this one guy, he's actually based out of DFW in Dallas, that started his own deep sea exploration expedition type company, and he's been to the ocean floor a couple times across the entire world. Um, and Omega heard about it, and they were like, "Hey, can we partner with you and develop a watch specifically for this?" Just kind of a cool marketing ploy. So then they ended up developing this Ultra Deep, is what it's called, the Omega Ultra Deep, 20,000 feet deep, just for kind of the promotional aspect and the deep sea exploration. But what was cool, besides just developing it, I mean, that watch is like that thick. It's thick, very thick. And for those people that don't know, that thick of a watch, that's thick. Like that's a big boy. That's hefty.
Hey,
that's hefty.
That's big. That's thick.
That's big.
That's big.
You heard it here first on Thoughtify.
Don't say it's not.
But what was cool, besides just giving the guy the watch, they actually attached the watch to the outside part of the sub when they went down to the Mariana Trench. And it had been down to the Mariana Trench 4 times. And that watch is still perfectly accurate. So I think it was 16,000 pounds per square inch of pressure that watch endured multiple times, and it works flawlessly. But total caveat, I thought that was really cool. But he was talking about the aspect of, we've had 12 people walk on the surface of the moon, but we have only had 10 people go to the ocean floor in a submarine. Isn't that insane that we have been off planet and been able to theoretically do more off of our planet on another surface of a moon versus what we have done on our own planet at the depths of our oceans?
That's if you believe the moon landings were real.
Which they are.
I do think they were real.
We've talked
there's
about
a lot of people that would immediately go, well, guess what? 10 people have been to the ocean floor and 0 people have been to the moon.
It's true.
But they recently did a flyover with a satellite of the moon and took a photo of Apollo 13 sitting there.
Yep.
And that for me is one of those things where it's just like, listen, at the end of the day, even if we haven't been to the moon, I don't think it's that crazy of a thing or that far out of the understanding of what we'd be able to do to get there. It's like,
for sure,
if we haven't been to the moon, we'll get, like, and I think we have, obviously, but we'll be there, and it won't even be that big of a deal because it's just not that big of a feat in terms of, terms of a race reaching a certain level of technology, yes, but in terms of actually getting anywhere in exploration, that's like taking one training wheel off of the entire, like, it's just not that far. The moon's the closest planet. There's nothing really on the moon unless you subscribe to the ideas that on the dark side of the moon, there's bases of aliens that have been there for a long time. But back to your point, wouldn't it be funny if they always had to go outside the submarine to check the time?
Turns out we were able to build a deep sea sub, but it can't tell time.
We have no idea what time it is down there, and it's pitch black, so we just sleep whenever we think we should, and we don't whenever we shouldn't.
We were able to develop an exosuit that can withstand 16,000 pounds of pressure per square inch and walk the ocean floor. How sick would that be, though? Like, to walk the ocean floor 7 miles deep.
I think it would be sick to the extent of how viable you could make it, and I guess viable is not the right word, but how observable you could make it, because
true
at the bottom of the ocean floor, there's a few problems they have. One, it's very bare, so you got to kind of get lucky to come across something extravagant. You don't just, like, there's not a bunch of stuff down there that, like,
there might be. We don't know because we haven't been down there that often.
Well, yes, is there 100%? We do know there is bunches of stuff down there, but it's kind of like going out to the middle of the ocean. You're not going to jump in and just immediately see wildlife everywhere. It centers itself around feeding, mating, things like that. And for you to say, not for you, but for anyone to say, I'm going to pick this spot 7 miles up, admit that I'm probably going to drift a mile in either direction as I'm going down, and then I'm going to land on top of something. So it's hard to see stuff. And then on top of that, once you touch the bottom or put any motion down there, sand goes everywhere. So it's also just really hard to move around down there without kind of messing up the environment to a point that you can't even see anything.
It's almost like, I mean, legitimately, when we were testing, like, I'm making a point, trying to connect the dots real quick. I went to the Johnson Space Center 15 years ago, and the big astronaut program that we have down there, they have a giant replica 1-to-1 size model of the International Space Station in a massive pool. I was literally on the edge, that close away. I could have jumped in if I wanted to. Probably would have been immediately kicked out. But seeing that,
they would have had to get you out of the water first.
It's true. I'm like, I'm not getting out.
You can't make me. I'm having a great time.
Good luck. I can hold my breath for at least 2 minutes. But the whole aspect of the ocean floor and the depths, like kicking up sand, similar to the aspect of what it would be like atmosphere-wise, no atmosphere-wise on the moon.
Yeah.
It's very similar characteristics and qualities. And I just find that really interesting that we can replicate to an extent of what it would be like on a totally different moon on our planet, but just in a different substance, i.e. water. Isn't that crazy to think about?
It is. It is that you can essentially experience a different level of gravity by suspending yourself in something else. And, one of the biggest problems with space travel that has been, a really good example is the astronauts who were just up in space for 8 months for complete politics, mind you. And being in space is not good for you. Being in space is horrible for you. Your bones get less dense. Your muscles can't build themselves the same. You atrophy insanely. Your organs get weaker. It's like a death sentence to be in jail for extended periods of time. And that is, and the girl who came back, I forget. She has some.
Sunny.
She has. Is her name Sunny?
Sunny.
She has some health issue now because she was up there so long, or at least in terms of progressing back to the state of normalcy that you would want to be at. And again, that was done because of politics. We had the full ability to go up there and get them the entire time. They just wouldn't clear it to go. So 2 people got stuck in space.
They wouldn't clear Elon to go get them because of
conservative, versus
him siding with Trump. Yeah.
But I think that's insane. But one of the things that it highlights is how, let's say we develop a warp drive tomorrow. That doesn't really help in terms of the years that we would still have to stay in space in some places because we don't have artificial gravity yet. We can create it through centrifugal motion of spinning something, but that still doesn't create the traditional gravity that your body needs to react to. And then past that point, your body would deteriorate over time. And in terms of how long you'd have to be in space, it deteriorate very quickly. So you know what they just did? They just were able to genetically modify human DNA with tardigrade DNA. Tardigrades are these little, they look like little tiny microscopic bears. And I'm probably saying it wrong. I think they're tardigrades or tardigrades. I'll look it up real quick.
We'll look it up.
I'll look it up in a second. But they are heavily studied because they can survive, and not only survive, but thrive in zero gravity environments. In terms of, so we have now taken tardigrade DNA and spliced it with human DNA to potentially try to give us some of the same qualities that would allow us to thrive in space. So essentially what I'm saying is at a certain point, the idea of humans going to another planet is probably not outside of being in some specific type of cryo chamber that would suffice for the needs of pressure and needs of everything to keep your body as it is. Actual humans won't go to space and traverse the stars. It will be genetically modified humans who can withstand 0 Gs for a long period of time.
And that's an interesting point. Have you ever heard of the movie The Titan?
Oh, and before I go on, I'm sorry. Tardigrade's it's not just 0 G, it's 0 G. It's being frozen, extremely hot, I believe.
Like they can freezing.
They can survive
in extreme environments.
Extreme environments and still not be in an area where they're not able to thrive as what they are. But what were you going to say?
What you just described, the movie with Sam Worthington, the guy who played in Avatar.
Yeah.
The main dude. He was in a movie, I want to say back in 2018-ish. Yeah, 2018. It was called The Titan. So, the whole sci-fi movie of the Earth is dying. We need to figure out how to establish humanity on other planets, other moons. And there's this group of individuals that sign up to be part of this program to basically alter their DNA to be able to survive the surface and the conditions of Titan.
Yeah.
The moon.
That makes sense.
And the phases basically of being able to hold their breath underwater, to be able to, instead of breathe, oxygen,
like
to be more reliant on methane and all that stuff. Basically everything that is a building block of Titan to alter a human's DNA to be able to survive in that type of environment.
Yeah.
And just the whole dichotomy of what that transition, as we start testing on actual humans, what that would look like, and the resulting effects, that could do to a person. It's just really interesting that, we're talking about this now, but it's almost like sci-fi movies are an idea until they become an actual thing.
Well, here's a weird phenomenon that I've noticed that we, as humans, will follow. We create the future of what we think it will look like and then design towards that as if it was supposed to look like that in the first place. Now, some stuff coincidentally ends up looking futuristic in terms of how we thought it might look, but like in terms of futuristic cities and things, that they're more of being designed with taking pseudoscience and loosely putting it into an environment, a contingent environment where it could exist and benefit some type of society, and then we develop towards that direction. We're almost like saying this is what the future looks like in terms of this is what it would need to look like to be futuristic, and then designing towards that versus like letting designs get to where they're going to be in the future, and that just be what futurism looks like.
Not letting design lead, but almost thought.
Yeah, we let pseudoscience lead. Like we let like Star Trek lead. I guarantee you, when we build the first warp drive, we're gonna make it look like a Star Trek ship or something.
And that's what's insane. Like the warp drive, we found that on accident. Like a warp bubble, we discovered that on accident.
A warp bubble? We've discovered a warp bubble?
We have. But it's like Michio Kaku. I think it was Michio Kaku who was talking about that, where he's like, we discovered it. We know it's possible. We just have to figure out how to do it now.
Well, you posted that on our Instagram Thoughtify Podcasts. We're getting a lot of followers there. We might get Instagram
Cheers to
famous.
Our followers, by the way.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Our new followers, you guys are awesome.
But you posted the other day, it said warp drive, or he said time travel is no longer theoretical. It's just an engineering problem.
Same with the
warp drive. I don't think that we've ever discovered a warp bubble. We've discovered the possibility of there to be one.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Like it's possible.
Keeping you honest.
For sure. We just have to figure out, again, engineering problem, how to do it.
Yeah.
But just thinking back, the James Bond movies back in the 60s, right?
Did they use warp drive?
Well, no. Yes.
They did?
No, just kidding. But I was just going to say, like, you're talking letting creativity lead rather than design.
Yeah.
Pseudoscience. You're talking watches, James Bond, known for the gadgets.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I've got a normal watch, but I can totally talk into it like a phone. And it's just like, now we have that.
Right.
60 years later, whatever. It's like, that's just a common thing that we all have access to.
And
what is that future level going to look like, to where what we're talking about now is just going to be like, that was so primitive with them thinking like it was theoretical. And now it's possible. We just have to figure it out. And then once we get to a point of actually having it consistently, that whole progression is so crazy.
Well, here's an interesting thing about that is so much of what we think is futuristic. So like when they take like in the 50s and they had like futuristic cars, what are they going to look like? And they showed all this stuff, and people take what is already available and apply it to somewhere where it could be more highly utilized in an efficient manner and call that the future. For instance, flying cars. Yep. They're like, in the future, there's definitely going to be flying cars. And at that time, did we have cars? Yes. Did we have flying? Yes. Are they just like the watch? Did we have talking on a phone? Yes. Did we have a watch? Yes. Is it theoretically possible to take those two technologies and put them into a localized environment to where they could play, off of the same foundation?
Yeah.
Yes. But it's almost like we're just taking existing technology and rearranging it to look different. And we're like, that's the future.
Yep.
When in reality, the future is a barrier that all technology reaches, that we would have to cross that precipice to get into the next technological age. I think right now that's AI and combining AI with, actual brains. Biologics. Yeah. But it's like, it's funny how we just look at technology and we're just like, here's a phone, here's a watch. What if there was a watch phone? Oh my gosh, the future's going to be crazy.
Or a phone watch.
Yeah, and it's like, in reality, like we could have made that at that time. Except
it would have been like freaking honking massive.
It would have looked like a Power Ranger, or like it would have looked
it
would have looked like the Yu-Gi-Oh card deck. You would have had to put it up to this ear and be like, "Hello, yes,
Blue Eyes White Dragon." But that's what's crazy too. The whole principle and perspective. Yes, we take a lot for granted technologically today.
Yeah.
But think about, have you seen videos of like kids getting interviewed back in the 50s and 60s? Like, what is the year 2000 going to look like?
Oh, they
give their answers. But then realizing, realistically, if you're saying 1960 to 2000, that's only 40 years.
Yeah.
Which realistically, the development technologically, that was a lot. That was a heck of a progression.
Yeah.
But realizing that was 40 years to get to 2000 and everything that came as a result of the year 2000. But then from 2000 to 2020, we had an exponential increase in technological advancements. So talking about, again, Moore's Law, you have technology get better, exponentially better in half the time. So in the years 1960 to 2000, big jumps. From 2000 to 2020, really big jumps. What is 2020 to 2030 going to look like? Well, with the advancement, especially AI has been only really taken off in the last 4 years.
When did AI come out? It was only like 4 years ago.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. We're at 4 years already. And by the year 2030, what is that going to look like?
Well, I think, the mechanisms for progressing technology are definitely, they're getting better and better. And I think AI, and people talk about the AI singularity, which is essentially when, even some people who theorize why we're here in the universe, like it's almost like some people have said we are the universe's answer to itself. We have been put here to try to make we have been put here in consciousness to try for as the universe trying to understand itself, trying to figure out what its inner workings are. And when we get that was kind of a side point, but the point I was making is the AI singularity is where if we create a version of mental processing that's exponentially better than what we can do, which is already what AI has done, then that will eventually create a level of mental processing that's exponentially better than it. And then, even with the first one, we're one generation behind every major needed efficiency. So we're essentially normal humans would be obsolete. And the AI would create another AI that would create another AI that would eventually create some type of existence where there was no need for anything because everything would be figured out. And I think at that point existence would end, because there's no point in existing if there isn't suffering, because it's the friction that makes us experience life.
And we're seeing glimpses of that just with quantum computing. The aspect, we've briefly talked about it before, that there was a 30 to 40 year problem that we as humans were trying to solve. And then quantum computing comes along and it was able to solve it in a matter of like 5 seconds.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
But and it would have taken modern supercomputers 10 septillion years. And septillion is a number that is outside of imaginable. You can only hear it. You can't process that number in your brain. But I think the funny thing is the way that they go, we've been working on this for 30 years. And it's like, it would have taken 10 septillion. It's like, so what? Like that 30 years of progress was worth noting?
Yeah.
Against 10 septillion?
0.0000 to the infinite.
Yeah, we've been working on this for the past 30 years. It would have taken longer than available time we have to actually figure it out.
We had to make ourselves sound better than we actually are.
We tried. We tried.
We want you guys to know we tried.
I was here. I was there. I was there when it happened.
That is insane, though. Like, legitimately, what is quantum computing AI going to think of on its own to create like the next generation, if there is another generation of consciousness or processing?
Well, what I mean, you look at humans, and we're both Christian men. We believe we're made in the image and likeness of our Creator. And one of the things that I think inherently says that is that we are at heart creators. That is what humans do. They create. They make tools. And why do you create something? You create it specifically to have a relationship with it. For instance, if you make a hammer, your relationship with that hammer is work and getting things done more efficiently. So in terms of us being made in the image of likeness of our Creator, we are creators ourselves, and we have that bleeding out of us. But once we create another instance of something like ourselves, we will then make ourselves obsolete because we don't have the omnipotent power to back up and keep ourselves as the one to keep everything in check. So, like, God can create something purely in his likeness and image that has godlike abilities in terms of understanding good and evil and being able to create constantly, but still be the ultimate power. We don't have that ability. We're going to create something better than ourselves, and then that's going to trump us and make us obsolete because we don't have a fallback to, keep everything in check.
And it's crazy, the whole debate with AI today. You have some on one side saying we need to have parameters on it to keep it in check, and some are like, nah, they don't really care. So it's like, what is the fine line? Because ultimately, it can exponentially make itself better. ChatGPT, version 4, tried to replicate itself before it was deleted.
Yeah.
So if it's able to try and understand what it needs to do to survive already, just imagine what quantum computing mixed with AI, with biologics would do.
Quantum AI, I think, would already reach the singularity.
In an instant, legitimately an instant, the blink of an eye, which is scary to think. We can't keep up with that. So how do you build parameters even around something like that?
And I always think, imagine the movie like Eagle Eye with Shia LaBeouf, you remember?
Yeah.
And that was about this specific situation where there's a quantum computer that is super smart and has essentially decided that humans are a problem and they need to go. And I always think, when you create something like that, is there still the 1 in a septrillion billion chance that a human in its original, original
state,
not state, but original ingenuity could at one time outsmart the ultimate AI and destroy it? Because that's in the movie where it's everything, everything seems like no matter what, the AI has already thought a way around it.
Yeah.
And then because humans have this innate difference in them in terms of how they were created versus AI, they're able to come out with some last minute thing that
one probability.
Yeah, that one probability. I don't know, maybe call me a romantic, but I believe in that in terms of but we would have to pay the price of probably losing all humanity to AI.
Most of it.
Yeah, to get to that one, hey, this is how we stop it. But even then, there would be the last credits playing, and then the AI's light in its eye would come back on, and then the movie would end.
It's the Michael Bay ending.
Well, what's the song to it?
It's Linkin Park. Linkin Park.
Hate myself.
I become
something like that. We just ruined it.
Yeah. It was good in theory, guys.
Just watch the memes online. You'll get what we're talking about.
Not to take a total random pivot, but I thought this was really cool. I'm a Star Wars geek. I like Star Wars. Disney sucks. They ruined it. But the old stuff was really good. I know you don't agree. You think Rey is the chosen one better than Anakin Skywalker?
I think that the introduction of Force Fu, the ability for non-Force wielders to be able to wield the Force by thinking about it enough and having enough intention behind it, is probably the most inclusive and best thing that Star Wars has ever done, because now the Jedi are just essentially irrelevant. And there's not even a story there anymore, and we can just put a chick in it and make it gay.
Copyright, that belongs to South Park. we're not going to claim that one.
Put a chick in it and make it gay.
But I thought this was really interesting. I saw this article blip that the planet Tatooine from Star Wars, where Luke grew up, they found, although realistically, probability-wise, it wouldn't be a shock, but I thought it was really cool that they actually found an exoplanet that resembled Tatooine to a T.
Well, I mean, that doesn't surprise me at all, because there's trillions of galaxies with trillions of stars and trillions of planets. The probability that there would be one that is not just mimics Tatooine, but probably has a structure on it with a Jedi standing there, it's probably pretty high.
There's probably Jedi.
It's probably Jedi.
They've adapted. They don't necessarily bow to the idea of being carbon-based life forms. They could draw power from something else. But real quick, just want to say, Kepler 16b is an exoplanet or a binary star system like Tatooine's twin suns, like it orbits.
You're a binary star system.
Thank you. I subscribe to zeros and ones.
Well played, sir. Well played.
Of course. I'm trying to not drop my glass. But then there's one.
Right?
Shh, shh, don't tell them that. We're not poor.
We're rich.
We're not poor.
We're at the beach.
Poor. But there's HD 131399 AB.
Oh yeah, that one.
Which is another planet in a multi-star system, potentially rocky, but its environment is less studied, but it may not be desert-like. And then there's good old classic Proxima Centauri b. That planet has had a lot of interesting conversation around it. Just with the possibility of life, how it kind of revolves around, it's a tri-star system, if I'm not mistaken, or is that Alpha Centauri? Proxima, either way, both those are from Goldilocks zones, meaning it has, from what we're seeing, the best opportunity to have the building blocks for life. So it's a rocky exoplanet in the habitable zone of its star, i.e. the Goldilocks zone, but it orbits a single red dwarf, not twin suns, so like us, it may have a more varied climate.
Didn't we talk about on the last podcast that they had found another planet that is now the most probable one for life, that through the atmosphere that they were testing?
It was in our in the Milky Way, in our specific solar system. It was a moon.
It's not Proxima Centauri b, is what I'm saying.
No.
I think that's the more likely one for life.
Yeah, but isn't that
it has biosignatures?
It's way closer to us.
I think so. I don't know.
Wasn't it one of the moons around Jupiter or Saturn?
No, that was we were talking about Europa, which is in our solar system, has a high likelihood of microbial life in the water under the
completely
ice.
Frozen exo moon,
and it has a warm core, or we think it does, and there would be potential of the heating the water and being able to create something there. But here, I don't mean. What were you going to say before I go off on this tangent?
Oh, what is this tangent relating to?
We've already talked about it, but it's going to blow the mind.
Is it relating to space and planets?
It's relating to the universe, black holes. We talked about this.
Real quick. I did want to say before I forgot, because I was meaning to bring it up before, but how we can only survive in space for so long before it absolutely degrades our bodies.
Yep.
There was a study that came out, or some research that said humans going to Mars, we would only be able to live on the surface of Mars for 4 years before we would die.
And that's the thing is first off, that we would have to terraform Mars, and that's one of the reasons.
And could you develop structures though could withstand and basically block out?
That would where we would have to exist. Now, in terms of us being able to run outside and play around in our yards on Mars,
let's play in the sand.
Let's go get that red sand and throw it on our friends.
We don't like sand like Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
Star Wars.
Before we could go out and start playing around in the sand.
Life is a beach. I'm just playing in the sand.
Oh, my boy.
Lil Wayne.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Not taking credit.
Never too late to quote the GOAT. But, yeah, long story short, I've said this like 7 times now. We would just not be able to be outside running around and playing unless we were genetically altered to deal with the environment. But the thing I was going to say, and this is something that has been keeping me up at night for the past few nights until I fall asleep, which is just kind of how that goes anyways, but I've been thinking about it a lot. And there is a physicist or a theoretical physicist, and he came up with the idea recently that our universe exists within a black hole. And now there's probably mathematical and other supporting evidence that he has to argue this, but in terms of what a black hole is, it nearly perfectly represents our universe and the limits of our universe. In terms of a black hole, has the event horizon. The event horizon is where any information that passes over it cannot come back. It is universally, physically, logically, there's no way that any bit of information that passes the event horizon of a black hole can return. So if you look at the edge of our universe, what do we see? And we're always like, what's on the other side of the edge? If there's an edge to the universe, what's on the other side? And it would make sense that on the edge of our universe is like the waterfall effect of the information coming into from the black hole that our universe is in. And if we were to ever go to the edge of the universe, it would be equivalent to us swimming up a waterfall, to where we'd be perpetually trying to swim, but perpetually making it nowhere, because no information within the black hole could get outside of the black hole. And then further than that, in terms of taking the information in, one of the things the James Webb Telescope has discovered that has baffled all the physicists and all the astronomers who theorized the Big Bang is that there are galaxies at the edge of our observable universe that are way too big and way too old for the Big Bang to have happened the way that it was originally stated. So here's what I think it sounds more like. And I'm saying that no, the reason that they would be old is because that information, those galaxies are being pulled into this black hole and then represented, and whether it's a galaxy form or just a bunch of different stars into our system. And then that is the churn for which we think there's dark energy in terms of this force that's slowing down the expansion of the universe and exists everywhere at the same time. It would be the waterfall of information coming in, pushing on everything back. But in terms of where the actual Big Bang came from, it's not real. It's just that when the star collapsed in on itself and started creating the hole for information to go into, that was the Big Bang. That was the star getting as dense as possible, going to an impossible density, and then ripping reality. And that rip of reality was the instantaneous Big Bang that we think everything came from. And it went like this. It went, falling in on itself, and then bam to this point, and then, pushed out because it went through that point and then out into its new existence. And that's where we get the expansion of the universe. But with that expansion on the edge, that hole is getting bigger and bigger, and the rim is getting bigger and bigger. So the stuff falling into it is still there, creating that dark energy that surrounds everything else. So that has been blowing my mind lately.
Well, and it feeds into the fact of Albert Einstein's theory of relativity. Like, the purest definition or concept of a black hole is pure gravitational distortion, pure time distortion, because everything that you get sucked into black hole wise, it changes the dynamic of everything that we would normally know. So feeding into the theory of relativity, depending on the heavier gravitational pull, it affects time, right? Mass.
Well, it affects existence and anything you consider to be a part of an existence can't escape a black hole. So it's essentially taking, like, if you were to look at a TV screen and the whole TV screen just started turning into and falling into a hole, all of the existence of whatever is in the TV screen can't escape that hole. And so time, matter, space, anything gets sucked into the black hole. It's literally bending the fabric of reality, and it creates a tear in reality. And I think that creates a tear for another reality to exist. Now, do I still believe that God did that and that Jesus came and died for our sins? 100%. But that I don't think those things are mutually exclusive.
Correct. I agree. And the best visualization for those individuals that can't quite picture that analogy of the TV bending in on itself to disappear. Think of Thanos in Infinity War, how he has the reality or the reality stone and the time stone, where he can just pop up like a little portal, like how it kind of fluctuates and distorts, and then he walks through, and then it creates, and then he steps through, and it twists in on itself.
Yeah,
it's kind of like that concept. Where it eats up that specific aspect of time in that moment to where you can kind of step through, and it creates and bends what you know to be reality.
Here's a third way if we're neither of us are making sense, and this is the traditional way. If you have a blanket that's pulled tight and you drop a bowling ball in the middle of that blanket, that's gravity. And then if you were to put a hole with the weight of that ball still pulling on that hole, creating an even deeper and deeper and steeper hole, everything around it would be sucked in off of that plane, which would be the blanket. Yeah. So long story short, nothing can escape a black hole. And in terms of how our universe works, getting out to the farthest edge of it, and we, again, if you think about, if there's an edge of the universe, what's on the other side? Everyone's, there always has to be another side. It would only make sense that on the edge would be the waterfall of information coming in, populating this universe, keeping anything from escaping it. Yeah. There is no force in this reality that can go against the current of the information flowing into the black hole. So you would get to the edge of the universe and you would go forward perpetually forever until the end of time, because information would just never stop coming in.
And the aspect, one of the laws of thermodynamics, energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It's just represented in a different way, or matter, atoms.
Yeah.
Is that the case in a sense with a black hole? Everything substance-wise and energy-wise that gets sucked into a black hole, Does the black hole just absorb it? Yes, to become bigger. But does that energy get displaced elsewhere? Or does the black hole take it just to get bigger?
I've been thinking about this in terms of what black holes' purposes are. I think the black holes are the universe's energy recycling bins. They take
trash compactors.
They take all available energy and recycle it and renew it. And then they're spitting energy back out, and they're keeping energy within.
So interesting point right there. Everything that we thought leading up to this point, if it's digested and sucked in by a black hole, it's gone forever. But recent studies have found in observations that stars that have been digested and sucked into a black hole have all of a sudden been regurgitated.
I've heard about that. Now, I mean, in terms of what they're saying is that on the event horizon, I think it's been more of like above, like let's say like if you had a trash compactor and things were being shoved into it, as it was being shoved, things were like popping off. I think that's kind of like the competing theory against it in terms of like, is that stuff actually being regurgitated, or is that stuff being like, like if you see one of those trash, like, tears up trash as it goes in, and sometimes something gets torn up and then pops back up because it creates a lot of pressure. Yeah. I think that's like the competing, are we observing it being regurgitated, or are we observing pieces being flicked back out that are, being pushed out for some reason or not? But I guess that wouldn't make sense because the gravitational pull of a black hole would, but then that even like makes you think, and we're not physicists, so we can't think.
We're theoretical physicists.
We're definitely theoretical physicists. We just haven't studied
with 0 degree.
Yeah. And in terms of like, if that gravity is so strong, how could anything shoot back out? Like it almost has to be a representation of something that we don't understand. Because if the gravitational pull of a black hole is so strong, that wouldn't make sense that anything could shoot outwards from it.
And it would render one of the laws of thermodynamics mute. Because are you destroying matter or energy by going into a black hole, or are you just transcribing that into something else that would attribute to the characteristics of a black hole? Or does it completely get destroyed since you can't escape it? Especially if it doesn't get regurgitated.
I just think it gets sucked in. Now, in terms of like what a black hole is, I can imagine how that would, in our sense of destroying something, like spaghettify someone, take them and just stretch them for trillions of miles. But in terms of it destroying anything, I don't think it would.
Because there's no way. I mean, if we somehow found out that it could, that would blow some of the natural laws of physics out of the water. That matter or energy can neither be created nor destroyed. That energy is energy.
I think we're probably not understanding it fully, because like one thing that I've learned about thinking through these things in the way that we do is that there's like the situations where there's like the yes, but you're not taking into account this, and this would actually attribute for that. So I'm sure there's some type of law that,
accounts for it.
Yeah. But because I think it's pretty sound that energy can be neither created nor destroyed.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I don't think there's any.
It just gets utilized in a different form or manifestation when it comes to a black hole.
Like when I sleep versus going running, I'm using less energy, and I'm actually preserving it for later when I eat.
Sure.
Smart. Still not a green screen. We want
Still
you
not
to
a
know
green
that.
screen. It's real. It's
Isn't
purely
that nice,
authentic.
though?
I'm legitimately like, what's crazy, audience? Like, if you guys are watching this video, the ocean looks pretty chill right now, but it's actually red flagged, i.e., there's a heavy undertow, and we can't go swim in the ocean because we'll get sucked out to sea and you'll never hear from us again. So Thoughtify will forever disappear, like getting sucked into a black hole, because we are the life of Thoughtify.
We are what Thoughtify is. Without us, there would be no Thoughtify. So
it's true.
You better hope we don't go in that water, because God knows I
really want to. Though.
I might go in the water.
We've been here for 3 days now, and we have not been able to get in the ocean.
It's been raining
due to weather and wind and all that stuff. But there comes a certain point where you just got to risk it. You know,
it's crazy. Like my brain definitely, like when we get into our conversations and we just start going and it's like intense, my brain is like operating at like, it's like I can feel how much it's trying to process. And then we always have to take like a step back and be like, there, you see the ocean? Like just give ourselves like a mental check. So like I can think that intensely again for like long periods of time.
Yeah, you have to. I'd be curious, audience-wise, when you guys listen to this, please comment.
Please comment.
Is it hard to keep up with the schism of conversation with where our brains go? Like, would it be better if we kind of slowed things down, or do you like the tempo that we kind of keep things up with?
And just know, if you say it is hard to keep up with, we're going to bring that up passive aggressively at inconvenient times.
Yes.
And just make sure you remember it.
And probably call you out by name because we can see names.
We can't.
I can.
Oh, he can. I can't. And he's got more creator access to the account than I do.
I give you full access.
Yeah, I can't find it. I keep trying to log back in and I can't.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm taking over.
This eventually is just going to be his podcast, and I'll just be a
guest.
No, a constant guest. You know, like an always guest.
He's that guy.
He's earned his permanent spot on the residency on the podcast.
Absolutely. But yeah, I think I love talking about stuff like this. And we realized that being at the beach, it was a pretty heavy subject to probably dive into.
No, not at all.
But
this is thought-provoking. We're around the natural creation that is interesting. Like, look at that ocean. Think about how much water is in that ocean. You can't even imagine. It's insane. Think of what's on the bottom of it. We don't even know yet. There's like 98% of the ocean that hasn't even been explored yet. Yep. Like, this is a perfect place for deep conversation.
I feel like we've almost explored more of the moon and outer space, like within our relative vicinity of Earth, than we have the actual ocean.
Yeah.
That was crazy. One point, I think we talked about it before, but NASA originally was founded and put together to explore the oceans. But all of a sudden, there was a certain point where they stopped doing that and decided, let's go explore space instead.
Well, it was probably the
Cold question War. Is, did they find something down there that they're like, holy cow, we don't want to touch this? They probably found the base.
They probably found the base of drones, and the drones were like, if you come back here, we're going to annihilate everything.
Exactly.
And they're like, anyways, we're going to go check out space.
Yeah.
That seems like a lot cooler.
And the crazy theory feeding into that, a lot of these drones have come from the ocean.
Yeah, we were just listening to, if you listen to the recent Joe Rogan podcast, shout out Joey, our boy.
Joey R.
We're going to be on there sooner than later. But if you listen to one of his recent ones, who's the guy? Swarf?
Hal Puthoff.
Yeah, he was
Puthoff,
something like that. Yeah. CIA guy, had a very extensive background, and he was talking very heavily about a lot of these things existing in bases underwater, where there's just like an outpost where they have like so many of these drones that operate autonomously, come back, recharge, refuel, go back out,
and then gather data. Disregard the laws of physics.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they're going, a couple thousand miles per hour? Or like a couple hundred miles per... Yeah, underwater. Completely not distorting...
Or like 500 knots.
Or displacing water as it's moving through it. Like, stuff that we've caught on submarine radar. Stuff that just does not make sense from our technological point of view and our advancements with where we're at today.
Well, it only makes sense if you think about actually displacing space-time.
Yep.
And,
it's the only way you could do it.
Creating like the wave effect, like the ocean's perfect segue. The ocean, those waves.
Not a green screen.
Not a green screen. Those waves are perfectly representing what it would be to be in a warp drive, in terms of it would warp space in front of it and space behind it, to where you're traveling on a logically and physically sound piece of reality, but you've created a tilt. And that starts to propel you forward because you're falling into, you're perpetually falling forward, which would be the force pushing you forward. And you would use gravity propulsion to speed that up.
Which is basically the concept of a warp bubble.
Yeah.
You're bending space and time around said object to be able to travel faster than the speed of light, because you're distorting all matter around you to get to a point faster than you would have been able to without it.
Faster than the speed of light.
Technically, yes.
Yeah, you could.
Because it's like you're taking a rug, and instead of traveling from one side of the rug to the other, you're bending it in half, and you're able to transfer from point A to point B,
but without breaking any of the laws of physics.
Yep. You're just displacing yourself with space and time.
They've already proven that light speed can be broken, because they said in terms of certain galaxies expanding, they are expanding at a rate that light is on top of them moving. And if you add those two things together, that's breaking technically the speed of light. But in the same thing as a warp drive, it's existence on a plane of reality that the physical laws aren't broken. It's that reality is moving with something moving fast with it. And if you combine those two speeds, it's faster than the speed of light.
I just keep thinking about how cool that'd be to be in the prime of civilization where that's a normal thing.
I get pissed that I got born here sometimes because I'm just like, man, we're born literally right before everything gets cool and right after it was cool. Like in terms of we were just exploring the whole world, finding new places and finding islands and all this stuff. You could just find a place and stamp a flag down and be like, this is mine. I'm going to keep this. Now, there were a lot of caveats that would suck, disease, starvation, all these things that they didn't have necessarily widespread ways to alleviate. But in the frontierism, just all the history that made us what we are today, outside of the ocean floor is kind of like we've at least flown a plane over it and we know it's there. And we're right on the precipice, like 50 years away from going to like a different planet or
Mars.
Having space travel be more of a common thing.
Yep.
And it's like, we're going to be dying right then.
I think we'll be at Mars before that. At least we'll be there, but it won't be like a consistent, normal, let's hop in an airplane and go to Florida.
We'll have gone there.
Yeah. That is going to be so cool to watch. That will be our moon event. Although going to the moon here in a couple of years with the Artemis missions will be our moon event.
Yeah.
In a cliche way, like knowing that there's humans that we will be able to watch walking on the surface of something else other than Earth. I think is just an insane concept that we're going to be able to see.
I think it's crazy that you can look right now at pictures of the Mars rover just existing on another planet where the wind is blowing, the sun is out, and there's just nothing there. Yeah. It's just a bunch of rocks sharing the time together. Yep. It's just so weird. It's like something we were talking about the other day. Like, does it even exist outside of observation? It's like
true.
It's just crazy to think about. Like, that would have never been perceived unless there was something there to perceive it.
We're going to add a new layer to the theory of relativity, that something is only understandable and actionable when it's perceived.
Well, that's not a new layer. That would be something that already exists in terms of saying, like Schrodinger's cat.
Nope, it's Thoughtifier's cat.
Okay, we're going to take that from him. We're going to take that.
Yep.
He's not alive to dispute it.
Exactly.
Come throw hands.
All bets are off. Let's go,
You're
dog.
dead already.
Let's go, big dog.
Let's go.
Oh. Big dog. But a lot of this stuff that we talk about, audience, we post on a consistent basis on our Instagram story.
We do.
So if you're ever wanting like
what's in our mind or what we're potentially going to talk about on the next podcast,
go check out our stories.
We post clips from our podcast. I think we should start posting more of what we post on our story on the actual Instagram as well to make it, something to scroll through.
For sure.
But right now, I think we're at like 200 followers. We started
close to it.
We started only like a couple months ago, and it's essentially this vacation was paid for by y'all and the support for this podcast. So we appreciate that.
We wish we could say that.
This vacation was not paid for by that, but that is not a green screen. That's
not a green screen.
That's the ocean.
I think that's a good segue, probably to wrap this episode up.
It's sad to wrap it up because this is next episode. We're going to be so down because we're not.
Let's not
in
talk
front
about
of the
that.
green screen.
Don't talk about that. Don't talk about that. Don't talk about that. We're going to go enjoy some beach and ocean time. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It was very theoretical and very awesome.
Yeah.
Space wise. But definitely follow our Instagram. Check us out on social media. Follow us on Spotify or whatever platform you're viewing on in the first place. Share with friends. Check out our stories.
Just interact in any way, shape, or form. Comment, interact, please. Again, I've said this 1,000 times. This is going to get big. And if you are one of the original interactors, like I'm thinking of someone right now who on like one of our first 4 podcasts commented on there. You remember that person? When we get big, they're getting a shout out. They're getting something special. They're getting free merch because we were talking about this the other day. Like we have finally found something that, like, if we actually did it every day, it wouldn't be work. You know, that stupid cliche saying that
do what you love what you do.
Yeah, well, not do it. Yeah, that. But like, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life, and you're like, oh yeah, so you get up at every single time. You're always like, I just want to do this. I really think this could be it for us. Like, in terms of what we do on a day to day, we enjoy this a lot more. So I think the passion will make the foundation be very strong. And all that to say, interact with us. If you do, we'll make it worth your time in the long run.
Absolutely. And keep an eye out. We're working on some pretty cool stuff to release summertime Thoughtify apparel wise. The hats will be coming and be available for purchase along with some other cool stuff. So keep an eye out for that if you guys are interested. But other than that, appreciate you guys tuning in. Not a green screen. And enjoy episode 28.
Enjoy episode 28. Love you guys. We're going to go jump in the water, get bit by a shark. See ya.
We're going to fight sharks.
Bye.